Why are you still here? The question came from behind me, low and dangerous, as I stood at the stove flipping pancakes at 6 in the morning. I didn't turn around. I'd learned in my 32 years that the most threatening voices usually belonged to the most broken people. Because your children are hungry, I said simply, sliding another pancake onto the growing stack. You know what's funny about rock bottom? It makes you fearless. Not brave, fearless. There's a difference. Brave people have something to lose. I had nothing left to protect, which meant I had nothing left to fear. And that morning, in that massive kitchen that probably cost more than every apartment I'd ever lived in combined, I was about to discover that sometimes having nothing is the most powerful position of all. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this really started and why you need to hear this story. Because if you've ever felt like you were failing at the one thing that mattered most, if you've ever been so broke that you took a job you knew was impossible just to survive another week, then this story is for you. Hey, how are you doing today? Wherever you're watching this from, I hope you're somewhere comfortable, because you're going to want to stay for this one. Seriously, hit that like button if you believe that sometimes the most dangerous situations lead to the most beautiful transformations. And subscribe because I promise you, what happened in that house over the next few months will make you believe in second chances again. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment and let me know. Is it raining where you are? Sunny? Whatever the weather, I hope this story warms something inside you the way that kitchen warmed me that first morning. My name is Maya Torres, and this is the story of how I went from a broke single mother who couldn't afford her daughter's medication to the woman who tamed the untamable, loved the unlovable, and somehow found my way into the most dangerous and most healing place I'd ever been. But let me start from the beginning, back when I still believed that loving someone meant they'd love you back. I was 23 when I got pregnant. 23 and stupid in that specific way that only young love can make you. Daniel was everything I thought I wanted. Charming, confident, always knowing exactly what to say. He promised me forever in 100 different ways, and I believed every single one. When I told him about Sophie, he smiled. He held my hands. He said all the right words. We'll figure it out together, he said. I'm not going anywhere. He was gone 3 weeks later. No note.
No explanation.
Just a text message that said, I'm sorry. I can't do this. 9 years later, I was still doing it. Alone. Sophie was 8 years old, brilliant, and battling chronic asthma that required expensive medications and even more expensive doctor visits. I worked 3 jobs. I cleaned houses in the morning, waited tables at lunch, and stocked shelves at a 24-hour grocery store 4 nights a week. I slept in 4-hour chunks when I was lucky. I ate whatever Sophie didn't finish. I wore the same 5 outfits in rotation and prayed they'd last another season. And I was still drowning. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. We had 2 weeks to come up with 3 months of back rent, or we'd be on the street. I had $417 in my bank account. Rent was $2,800. I cried in the bathroom that night while Sophie slept, my hand pressed against my mouth so she wouldn't hear. I'd failed at everything else in my life. I couldn't fail at keeping a roof over her head. That's when I saw the job posting. Live-in nanny position. Immediate start. Room and board included. Salary negotiable. Must be comfortable with challenging children. High-stress environment. Previous applicants did not work out. Serious inquiries only. The address was in Belmere Heights, the kind of neighborhood where people had security gates and circular driveways. The kind of place I only ever saw when I was cleaning someone's vacation home. I sent my application at 2 in the morning, fully expecting nothing. They called me at 8 the next morning. The woman on the phone had a crisp, professional voice that somehow managed to sound both hopeful and exhausted. Miss Torres, are you still available for the nanny position? Yes, I said, probably too quickly. Can you start today? As in, this morning? I should have heard the desperation in her voice. I should have asked more questions. But I was desperate too, and desperate people don't ask questions that might cost them opportunities. Yes, I can start today. Excellent. Please arrive by 11. I'll text you the address and gate code. Bring whatever you need for an overnight stay. If things work out, we'll discuss the full arrangement then. She hung up before I could ask what things working out meant, or why she needed me to bring overnight things for a trial shift. I got Sophie to school, promised her I'd pick her up later, and caught 2 buses to Belmere Heights. The neighborhood was even more intimidating in person. Every house looked like something from a magazine. Perfect lawns. Perfect trees. Perfect gates that said, "Keep out," in the most polite possible way. The address I'd been given was at the end of a private road. The house wasn't a house. It was an estate. 3 stories of stone and glass, with wings extending in both directions, and a fountain in the circular driveway that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. I almost turned around. But then I thought about Sophie. About the eviction notice. About the fact that I had 9 days left to figure out how to keep us off the street. I pressed the intercom button. "Name and purpose," a male voice said. Not friendly, not unfriendly. Just flat. "Maya Torres. I'm here for the nanny position." There was a long pause. Then the gate buzzed open. The walk from the gate to the front door felt like a mile. My clothes were clean but old. My shoes had a crack in the left sole. I probably looked exactly like what I was, someone who had no business being in a place like this. The door opened before I could knock. The man standing there was not what I expected. He was maybe late 20s, built like he spent significant time at a gym, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car used to before it died. But his eyes were kind. "Miss Torres?" He stepped aside.
I am James.
"Head of Household Security. Please come in." Security. This house had security, with titles. The entrance was all marble and high ceilings, with a staircase that curved up to the second floor like something from a movie. Everything was pristine. Everything was expensive. Everything screamed that I didn't belong here. "Mr. Nikolai is finishing a call," James said, leading me through hallways that seemed to go on forever. "I'll introduce you to the children first." How many children? I realized I'd never actually asked.
3. Triplets.
They're 6 years old. "And how many nannies have you had?" James glanced at me, something that might have been respect flickering in his eyes. "You're the 14th in 6 months. 14. 6 months. What happened to the other 13? They quit. Usually within 2 days. He stopped in front of a set of double doors. From behind them, I could hear yelling, crashing, what sounded like furniture being moved at high speed. "What exactly am I walking into?" I asked. James looked at me for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know if you'll last until dinner. But I hope you do. Those kids need someone." He opened the doors. The room beyond was chaos. Toys everywhere. Books scattered like someone had thrown them. Cushions from the couch piled in the corner. And 3 identical children, 2 boys and a girl, currently in the process of building what looked like a fort out of dining room chairs.
They froze when they saw me.
I froze when I saw them. They had dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that held way too much pain for 6-year-olds. They looked like they were waiting for me to either yell or run. I did neither. "Hi," I said, walking into the room like the destruction was completely normal.
I'm Maya.
"What are you building?" The girl spoke first. "A castle, to keep people out." "That makes sense," I said, crouching down to their level. "Castles are good for that. I'm guessing you've had a lot of people trying to get in lately?" The boys exchanged glances. The girl narrowed her eyes.
14, she said.
"You're number 14. I heard." I sat down on the floor, deliberately casual. "That's a lot of people. I bet you're tired." "We're not tired," one of the boys said, but his voice cracked a little. "We're fine." "Okay," I said. And then I just sat there. Children expect adults to do something. Command.
Correct. Control.
I did none of those things. I just existed in their space, not demanding anything, not trying to change anything. After maybe 2 minutes of silence, the girl spoke again. Aren't you going to tell us to clean up? Why would I do that? Because all the others did. Did cleaning up make you less tired? She blinked.
What?
You said you're fine, not tired. But building castles to keep people out sounds exhausting to me. I was just wondering if cleaning up helped. The second boy, who hadn't spoken yet, suddenly said, "When's lunch?" I glanced at my phone. It was 11:30. When do you usually eat lunch? Whenever someone remembers to feed us, the girl said, and there was so much casual pain in those words that my heart cracked a little. I stood up. Come with me. Where? The first boy asked, suspicious. Kitchen. I'm going to make you something to eat. They didn't move. You don't have to come, I said. But I'm going anyway, and I make really good grilled cheese. I walked out of the room. Behind me, silence. Then whispers. Then the sound of small feet following. The kitchen was enormous and barely used, all gleaming appliances that looked too perfect to be functional. I found bread, cheese, and butter through sheer determination. Do you know how to cook? The girl asked from the doorway.
Yeah.
Do you want to help? We're not allowed near the stove, one of the boys said. Who said that? All of them. The nannies. Well, I'm not going to let you touch the hot parts. But you can help with the cheese. I pulled out a cutting board. What are your names? I'm Alessandra, the girl said. That's Luca, and that's Matteo. Italian names. Interesting. Okay, Alessandra, you're on cheese duty. Luca, you can butter the bread. Matteo, you're my taste tester. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something other than suspicion in their faces. Curiosity. We made grilled cheese together. They were messy and enthusiastic and asked 100 questions. They wanted to know if I had kids, where I lived, why I wanted to be their nanny, if I was going to leave like the others. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I'm here today. They accepted that in the way children do when adults actually tell them the truth. We were halfway through lunch when I felt it, that presence that changes the air in a room. I turned. The man in the doorway was not what I expected. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair touched with early gray at the temples. He wore a suit that probably cost more than I'd make in a year. His face was sharp, handsome in a dangerous way, with a scar that ran from his left eyebrow into his hairline. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Dark, guarded, and holding the same exhausted pain I'd seen in his children's faces. This was Nikolai, the Mafia boss, though I didn't know that yet. The man whose house I'd just invaded. The father who was watching me feed his children at his kitchen table. Who are you? He asked, his accent slight but unmistakable. Maya Torres, the new nanny. His eyes moved from me to his children, who were actually sitting still, actually eating, actually calm. You've been here 20 minutes, he said. About that, yeah. The last nanny lasted 6 hours. I heard 14 was the record. Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite humor, but close. And you think you'll do better? I looked at Alessandra, Luca, and Matteo. At their faces, still guarded but softer than they'd been an hour ago. I don't know, I said. But I'm not afraid of a little chaos. This isn't a little chaos. Then I'm not afraid of a lot of chaos either. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he looked at his children again, and I saw something in his face that made my chest tighten.
Love. Fear.
Desperation. He was drowning too. Finish your lunch, he said to them. Then to me, my office. 10 minutes. He left. He likes you, Matteo said through a mouthful of grilled cheese. How can you tell? He didn't fire you immediately. The bar was low in this house, but I'd cleared it.
For now.
Nikolai's office was exactly what you'd expect from a man who controlled things. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, A desk that could probably seat 8 people for dinner. Everything was organized. Everything had its place. Everything except the photo frames turned face down on the corner of his desk. He didn't invite me to sit, so I stood. "James tells me you have a daughter," he said, not looking up from whatever document he was reading.
Sophie.
"She's 8. Where is she now?"
School.
"I'll need to pick her up by 3:30. "That won't work." He finally looked at me. "This is a live-in position. The children need consistency." Then Sophie comes with me. His eyebrow raised slightly. "You're negotiating already?" "I'm stating requirements. You need someone who won't quit. I need a place for my daughter and me to live. We both need something. That's not negotiating, that's reality." He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable. But I'd spent 9 years being judged by people who thought single mothers were irresponsible, lazy, or stupid. His stare was nothing compared to the school administrator who'd suggested I give Sophie up for adoption because I couldn't afford better insurance. "Most people are afraid of me," he said. "Most people have something to lose." Something flickered across his face. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition of a fellow survivor. "The children are difficult," he said. "Not just energetic. Truly difficult. They've destroyed property. They've hurt people, other children. They refuse to follow rules. They don't sleep through the night." The previous nannies left because they were genuinely scared. Of 6-year-olds? Of what those 6-year-olds might become. I thought about Alessandra's eyes, about the castle to keep people out, about Matteo asking when someone would remember to feed them. "They're not difficult," I said. "They're grieving." Nikolai went very still. "What?" "Your children are grieving. Everything you just described, that's grief. They're angry because they're hurt. They're destructive because they don't know how else to express pain. They're testing boundaries because every adult in their life keeps leaving. Their mother died 2 years ago." His voice was flat, controlled. "They should be past the difficult phase." Grief doesn't have phases. Not really. It just changes shape. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him deciding. Weighing risk against desperation. Need against suspicion. 2 weeks, he finally said. Trial period. You and your daughter can have the West Wing guest suite. Meals provided. Salary is $5,000 a week. I tried not to react to that number. $5,000 a week was more than I made in 2 months at all 3 jobs combined. During the trial period, he continued, you'll be responsible for the children from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. I'll handle mornings before 7 and nights after 8. You'll have Sundays off afternoon. If at any point you want to leave, you're free to go. If at any point I decide this isn't working, I'll give you 1 week's notice. What happens if I make it past 2 weeks? We discuss a permanent arrangement. And if your children actually start doing better? For the first time, something that might have been hope crossed his face. Then you'll have proven you're the miracle everyone told me didn't exist. I should have asked more questions then. I should have wondered why a man who could clearly afford anything needed to go through 14 nannies. I should have asked about his work, his life, why his children were so broken. But I didn't. Because I needed this job, needed this chance, needed to believe that maybe I could actually help these kids while saving my own daughter. I'll get Sophie from school, I said. We'll be back by 4. James will drive you. He'll also conduct a standard background check. I've never been arrested. Everyone says that. I've also never been in a position to do anything worth arresting. Poor people don't have the luxury of interesting crimes. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. James will be outside. Welcome to the family, Miss Torres. The way he said family made it sound like both a promise and a warning. Sophie's reaction to the news was exactly what I expected. Excitement, questions, and immediate worry about leaving her school. You'll stay in the same school, I promised as James drove us back toward Belmere Heights. I'll drive you there every morning and pick you up every afternoon. But you don't have a car. Mr. Nikolai said I can use one of his. Her eyes went wide. He has more than one car? James caught my eye in the rearview mirror, something that might have been amusement in his expression. Mr. Nikolai has 7 cars. Sophie was quiet for a moment, processing this information in that way children do when they realize the world is bigger and stranger than they knew. Are the kids nice? She finally asked. They're hurt, I said. But I think they want to be nice. That turned out to be optimistic. Alessandra, Luca, and Matteo took one look at Sophie and immediately closed ranks. They weren't mean exactly, but they weren't welcoming either. They watched her like she was an intruder, like she might take something that belonged to them. This is my daughter Sophie. I said that first evening as we all sat in what James called the family room. She's going to be staying here with us. Why? Alessandra asked, her tone sharp. Because I'm staying here, and she's my daughter. We're a package deal. We didn't agree to that, Luca said. You don't have to agree. But she's here, and she's kind, and I expect you to be respectful. They didn't respond, just stared at Sophie with those guarded, measuring eyes. Sophie, to her credit, didn't cry or hide behind me. She just stared back. I like your fort, she finally said, pointing at the chair castle they'd rebuilt after lunch. Can I help make it bigger? The triplets exchanged glances. Some kind of silent communication that siblings develop. Maybe, Matteo said, if you're good at following instructions. It wasn't friendship, but it was a start. The first few days established a rhythm. I'd wake up at 6, make breakfast for everyone, get Sophie ready for school, then spend the day with the triplets. Nikolai would appear for meals sometimes, mostly dinner, always watching his children with that same mixture of love and helplessness. He never joined us, never sat at the table, just stood in doorways or walked through rooms, observing like he was trying to figure out what I was doing that 14 other people couldn't. The answer was simple, really. I treated his children like children instead of problems. When Luca threw a plate because I asked him to try vegetables, I didn't yell. I just cleaned it up and said, that must have felt good for about 3 seconds. But now we don't have a plate, and you still haven't tried the vegetables. Want to talk about what's actually bothering you? When Alessandra locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out, I didn't threaten or demand. I just sat outside the door and talked about Sophie, about the times she'd been scared, about how sometimes the only way through fear was to sit with it until it got smaller. When Matteo woke up screaming from a nightmare for the 3rd night in a row, I didn't tell him to go back to sleep. I brought him warm milk and asked if he wanted to tell me about it. Mama's gone, he whispered. In my dream, I forget her face. I can't remember what she looked like. I wanted to tell him he'd always remember, but I'd learned that lying to children never helped. Maybe we can find pictures tomorrow, I said. So, you can look at her face whenever you want. Papa put away all the pictures. Why? He said they made everyone too sad. I filed that information away for later. By day 5, the children were still testing me, but softer. They wanted to know where I'd be when I'd come back if I was really staying. They asked about Sophie constantly, trying to figure out the threat assessment of this new person in their space. Sophie, for her part, was handling it better than I could have hoped. She was patient with their hostility, understanding in a way that only children who've also experienced loss can be. They're scared, she told me one night as I tucked her in. Like I was scared when Daddy left. Yeah, baby. Exactly like that. But you stayed. So they're testing to see if you'll stay too. My 8-year-old daughter understood trauma response better than most adults. Day 6 was when things shifted. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard it. Not crying exactly, but that particular sound of a child trying very hard not to cry. I found Alessandra in the playroom, holding a torn book. Her face was red, her hands shaking. It was Mama's, she said when she saw me. Her favorite. She used to read it to us every night. And I ripped it. I was angry and I ripped it, and now it's ruined, and she's gone and I can't fix it. She started sobbing then, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and painful. I sat down next to her and pulled her into my lap. She fought it for maybe 3 seconds, then collapsed against me like she'd been waiting for permission to fall apart. "We can fix it," I said softly. "Books can be fixed. And even if we can't make it perfect, we can make it readable. Your mama would want you to still enjoy the story." "You don't know what mama would want." But her voice was muffled against my shoulder, losing its edge. "You're right. I didn't know your mama. But I know mothers. And mothers want their babies to be happy and feel loved, even when we can't be there anymore." She cried harder. And I just held her, letting her grieve the mother she'd lost, and the book, and the fear that she was forgetting, and the anger at everyone who kept leaving. When she finally quieted, she stayed in my lap. "The others didn't hold us," she whispered. "The other nannies?" She nodded against my chest. "They said we were too old to be held, that we needed to learn independence." 6 years old. And someone had told them they were too old to be comforted. "You're never too old to be held when you're hurting," I said. Never. That evening, all 3 triplets wanted to sit close during dinner. Not on my lap, but near me, touching, checking that I was real and staying. Nikolai noticed. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, in the way his hands gripped his fork a little too hard. After dinner, after the kids were in bed, he found me in the kitchen. "What are you doing to them?" he asked. "I'm just loving them." "It can't be that simple." "Why not?" He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, I saw the exhaustion underneath the control. "I've tried everything. Therapists, specialists, strict schedules, gentle approaches, everything. Nothing worked. Maybe because you were trying to fix them instead of just being with them. They need fixing. They need their father." His face went hard. "I'm here every day." "You're here. But are you with them? Or are you just watching, waiting for them to become the children you think they should be?" It was harsh.
Too harsh, maybe.
But I'd learned that sometimes the truth had to be delivered without softening. "You don't know anything about me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I know you love your children. I know you're scared of failing them. I know you put away pictures of their mother because seeing her face hurts too much. And I know that your grief is teaching them to hide theirs." For a moment, I thought he might fire me. His face went through several expressions, none of them friendly. Then he sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs, and suddenly he looked less like a powerful, intimidating man and more like a father who'd lost his way. "I don't know how to do this without her," he said quietly. "None of us know how to do hard things until we're already doing them." That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. He looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw the same exhaustion I saw in my mirror every morning. The same desperate hope that maybe, somehow, tomorrow would be easier. "You made it 6 days, he said. "That's longer than anyone else." "It's been easy. Luca threw a plate at you. He messed. And he apologized after. That's progress." Alessandra locked herself in the bathroom for 4 hours yesterday. And came out when she was ready, because she knew I'd wait. Matteo wakes up screaming. And I'm there. That's all that matters. He studied me for a long moment. "Why are you so good at this?" "I'm not good at it. I'm just not afraid of the hard parts." "Why not?" I thought about Daniel leaving. About 9 years of barely surviving. About Sophie's medical bills and eviction notices and nights when I wasn't sure I could do it for one more day, but did it anyway, because what other choice was there? "Because I've already lived through worse," I said. "Your children's grief doesn't scare me. Their anger doesn't intimidate me. Their tests don't exhaust me. Because I understand that all of it, every difficult moment, is just them asking the same question over and over. Will you stay? Will you love me anyway? Will you leave like everyone else?" And your answer is the same every time. "I'm here. I'm not leaving. You're safe with me." Something shifted in his expression. Not trust, not yet. But the beginning of something that might become trust eventually. 2 weeks isn't enough, he said. What? To evaluate if this is working. I want to extend the trial period to a month. Relief flooded through me. Okay. Same terms. But I'm increasing the salary to $6,000 a week. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because you're doing what 14 other people couldn't. And because my children smiled today. Actually smiled. I can't remember the last time I saw that. He stood up, and suddenly the vulnerability was gone, replaced by that controlled authority he wore like armor. Thank you, Miss Torres. Maya, I said. If I'm going to be here for a month, you should probably call me Maya. Maya, he repeated, and the way he said my name made something flutter in my chest that I absolutely could not afford to feel. This was a job. He was my employer. And I had no business noticing that when he wasn't being intimidating, he was actually kind of beautiful. Good night, Mr. Nikolai, I said quickly. Nikolai is fine. He paused at the doorway. And Maya? Whatever you're doing, don't stop. After he left, I sat in the quiet kitchen and tried to ignore the fact that for the first time in 9 years, I felt something other than exhaustion. I felt hope. And for someone like me, hope was the most dangerous feeling of all. Because hope meant I had something to lose again. And losing was the one thing I'd sworn I'd never survive twice. But as I climbed the stairs to check on Sophie one more time, passing the room where 3 wounded children slept a little more peacefully than they had in years, I realized something. Sometimes the risk of losing was worth the chance of healing. For them, and maybe for me too. Week 2 started with what I thought was progress. The triplets were eating breakfast without fights. Sophie had been accepted into their fort-building operations. Mateo only had nightmares twice instead of every night. Alessandra had stopped testing whether I'd leave if she was difficult. Luca actually laughed at one of my jokes. I should have known peace never lasts. It was a Wednesday morning when I first understood what Nikolai actually did for a living. I'd been naive enough to assume he was some kind of businessman, maybe import-export or real estate. Rich people made money in boring ways, right? I was making lunch when James came into the kitchen, his face tight with tension. Maya, take the children upstairs. Now. I'd learned to trust James's instincts. Why? Just do it. Keep them in the playroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. My heart started racing. James, what's happening? Please. Just trust me. I gathered the children quickly, my voice calm even though my hands were shaking. Hey guys, how about we go build the biggest fort we've ever made? Upstairs right now. But I'm hungry, Luca protested. I'll bring lunch up. Come on, it'll be fun. They must have sensed my urgency, because they didn't argue. Sophie grabbed my hand as we climbed the stairs, her fingers tight around mine. We made it to the playroom just as I heard the front door open. Voices. Multiple voices, all male, all speaking in rapid Italian. I locked the door like James had instructed. What's happening? Alessandra asked, her eyes wide. I don't know, baby. But we're safe up here. We weren't safe. Not really. But children need to believe in safety, even when it's a lie. We built the fort. I made up stories to distract them. Sophie helped keep them calm with her presence. And through it all, I heard sounds from downstairs. Not violence exactly, but intensity. Doors closing. Footsteps. That particular quality of silence that meant dangerous conversations were happening. It lasted 2 hours. When James finally knocked and told us it was clear, the children ran downstairs like nothing had happened. Like this was normal for them. Because it was normal for them. James caught my arm before I could follow. We need to talk. Who was that? Business associates. What kind of business has associates that require locked doors and hiding children? He looked at me for a long moment, clearly deciding what to tell me. What do you know about Mr. Nikolai's work? Nothing. I assumed he was in business. He is in business. Just not the kind with quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. The realization hit me slowly, then all at once. The security, the multiple cars, the massive house, the way people spoke about him with that particular mix of respect and fear.
He's in the Mafia, I said.
James didn't confirm or deny, which was confirmation enough. And you're just telling me this now? You lasted longer than the others. You deserve to know what you were walking into. I walked into it 2 weeks ago. I have my daughter here, James. I know. And if I thought you or Sophie were in any danger, I would have told you immediately. But you're not. Mr. Nikolai keeps his family completely separate from his work. Those men today, that was an exception, an emergency. It won't happen again. How can you promise that? Because I've worked for him for 8 years, and in that time, he's never once let his business touch his children. He'd die first. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to grab Sophie and run. But I thought about Alessandra holding her mother's torn book. About Matteo's nightmares. About Luca finally learning to apologize instead of throw things. I need to talk to him, I said. He's expecting that. Nikolai was in his office, standing by the window, his back to the door. He didn't turn when I entered.
James told you, he said.
Yeah. And now you're going to quit like the others. I haven't decided yet. That made him turn. You haven't decided? I need you to answer some questions first. Honestly. He studied me, then nodded.
Sí.
I stayed standing. Is my daughter in danger?
No.
That's not good enough. I need details. I run several businesses. Some legal, some less so. I have enemies. I have competitors. I have people who would use my children against me if they could. That's why this house has security. That's why James exists. That's why I keep my family completely isolated from my work. The men today were associates who broke protocol. It's been handled. Handled how? In a way that ensures it never happens again. I didn't ask what that meant. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Your wife, I said. How did she die? His face went hard.
Cancer.
Stage 4 by the time they found it. She fought for 18 months. The children watched her fade. There was nothing criminal about it, if that's what you're asking. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if your work contributed to her stress, her illness, her death. Every day, he said quietly, she begged me to leave the business, to take the children somewhere safe and normal, to choose them over power. And I told her I would, after one more deal, one more year, one more opportunity. And then she was gone, and I never kept that promise. There it was. The guilt that lived underneath everything else. Is that why you put away her pictures? Because you can't stand to see what you lost while you were busy with one more deal? You don't pull punches, do you? Not when children are involved. So, answer the question.
Yes.
I put away her pictures because every time I saw her face, I remembered that she died disappointed in me. That my children lost their mother because I was too proud, too ambitious, too stupid to see what mattered until it was too late. And now I'm trying to be the father she wanted me to be.
But I don't know how.
I don't know how to be soft when I've spent 20 years learning to be hard. I don't know how to be present when I'm constantly managing threats. I don't know how to show them love when I'm not sure I remember what love looks like. He sank into his chair, and suddenly he wasn't a mafia boss. He was just a man who'd lost everything that mattered and was desperately trying to find his way back. That's why you keep hiring nannies, I said, understanding clicking into place. You're not looking for someone to control your children. You're looking for someone to teach you how to love them. I know how to love them.
No.
You know that you love them. That's different from knowing how to show them. He looked up at me, and I saw tears threatening in his eyes that he was fighting hard to contain. I'm failing them. You were failing them. Past tense. Nothing's changed. Everything's changed. They're eating. They're sleeping better. They're starting to trust. That's all because you made space for them to heal. You brought me here. You're letting me do things differently. You're trying. That's not failure. You should leave, he said. Take Sophie and go somewhere safe. I'll pay you for the full month, give you extra for the inconvenience. But you should go. Why? Because you're too good for this. Because your daughter deserves better than living in a house with armed security and emergency lockdowns. Because I have no right to ask you to stay in a world this dark. I sat down across from him. What if I want to stay? Why would you want that? Because those children need me. Because you need help. And because for the first time in 9 years, I have enough money to buy Sophie's medications without choosing between that and rent. You want honesty? Here it is. I need this job. But more than that, I think I'm good at it. And I think maybe I can actually make a difference here. It's dangerous. Living in a car with an asthmatic 8-year-old is dangerous. Not being able to afford an emergency room visit is dangerous. Eviction is dangerous. Your world isn't any more dangerous than the one I came from. It's just a different kind of danger. That's not a reason to stay.
No.
But this is. Your children are starting to heal. And if I leave now, after they've just started to trust me, I'll do more damage than all the danger in your world combined. They'll learn that even the people who seem safe eventually abandon them. Is that what you want? He closed his eyes.
No.
Then stop trying to push me away and start trusting that maybe I know what I'm capable of handling. You're not afraid?
I'm terrified.
But I've been terrified every day for 9 years. At least here. The fear comes with health insurance and my daughter sleeping in a bed that's actually big enough for her. He laughed, short and surprised. You're the most practical person I've ever met. Poverty makes you practical. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything settling between us. If you stay, he finally said, there will be rules. You and Sophie stay inside the property unless James or another guard is with you. You don't discuss my work with anyone. If there's ever another situation like today, you do exactly what James tells you, no questions. And if at any point I tell you to leave, you leave immediately. No arguments. Okay. That's it? Just okay. You're trying to keep us safe. I can work with that. Most people would demand more answers. Most people didn't spend their 20s learning that sometimes you have to trust people who are trying their best, even when their best comes from a complicated place. He stood and walked around the desk, stopping a few feet from me. Close enough that I could see the exhaustion in his face, the gray in his hair that probably hadn't been there before his wife died, the scar that someone had given him in a life I couldn't imagine. Why are you really staying, Maya? The honest answer was complicated. Because I needed the money.
Because his children needed me.
Because walking away felt like the worst kind of betrayal. And because when he looked at me like he was looking at me right now, like I was something precious and surprising, I felt something I hadn't felt since Daniel left. I felt seen. But I couldn't say that. So I said the second most honest thing. Because I think we can help each other. You need someone who understands broken things. I need someone who won't judge me for being broken. That seems like a fair trade. You're not broken. Neither are your children. But we're all a little cracked. And maybe that's okay. He smiled then, really smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Made him look younger, softer, like the man he might have been before life taught him to be hard. Okay, he said. You stay.
But Maya?
Yeah. Thank you. For not running. For seeing past what I am to what I'm trying to be. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. In my world, basic decency is revolutionary. That night, after Sophie was asleep and the triplets were quiet in their rooms, I stood in the hallway and admitted something to myself that I'd been avoiding. I was falling for him. Not the mafia boss part. Not the dangerous part. But the man underneath who loved his children so much it was breaking him. The father who didn't know how to be soft but was learning. The widower who still grieved so deeply he couldn't look at pictures of the woman he'd lost. It was the worst possible timing, the worst possible person, the worst possible situation. But feelings don't care about timing or logic or safety. They just exist. And mine existed whether I wanted them to or not. What I didn't know then, standing in that hallway convincing myself I could keep this professional, was that Nikolai was in his office, thinking the exact same thing about me. That the woman who'd walked into his house 2 weeks ago and refused to be intimidated by his children or his world or his warnings had somehow become the most dangerous thing in his life. Not because of what I knew about his business, but because of what I made him feel. Hope. And in his world, hope was the thing that got you killed. But he was willing to risk it anyway. The thing about secrets is that they multiply. One secret becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes a whole architecture of things you're not saying, not acknowledging, not admitting even to yourself. By week 3, I had a collection of secrets that would have made my younger self nervous. Secret number 1. I knew exactly what Nikolai did for a living now because James had given me the full briefing. Protection rackets. Money laundering. Import operations that definitely didn't just involve olive oil. He ran the entire Southern Territory, controlled politicians and judges and police chiefs, and had enough power that even his enemies respected him. Secret number 2. The triplets knew I knew. Children always know when adults are hiding things. But they were relieved I'd stayed anyway, which told me everything about how many people had left after learning the truth. Secret number 3. Sophie had figured it out too. My brilliant daughter, who noticed everything, had put together the security, the locked doors, the way people spoke around Nikolai with careful respect, and she'd asked me directly if we were living with someone dangerous. I'd told her the truth. That yes, Nikolai was dangerous to bad people, but never to us. That sometimes good people did complicated things in complicated worlds. That we were safe here, safer than we'd been in years. She'd accepted that with the resilience of a child who'd already learned that the world wasn't simple. Secret number 4. I was spending my evenings with Nikolai. It had started accidentally. I'd come downstairs for water one night and found him in the kitchen, sitting in the dark, looking at his phone with an expression that made my chest hurt. "Can't sleep?" I'd asked. "Never can," he'd replied.
So I'd made tea.
We'd talked. About nothing important at first. The weather. The children's progress. Safe topics. But safe topics led to less safe ones. His childhood in Italy. My childhood in foster care. His wife's last days. Daniel's abandonment. The guilt we both carried. The fear that we were failing at the things that mattered most. Now it was a routine. Every night after the children slept, we'd end up in the kitchen or his office, talking until midnight or later, slowly peeling back layers of protection we'd both built around ourselves. And every night, I told myself it was just friendship. Just two broken people finding comfort in shared understanding. I was lying to myself. Secret number 5. Nikolai was lying to himself too. I could see it in the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. The way his hand would hover near mine when we sat close. The way he'd started smiling more, laughing at my jokes, asking my opinion on things that had nothing to do with his children. The way he'd shown up in the playroom one afternoon and actually sat on the floor with the triplets, building the fort with them because I'd casually mentioned that they wanted their father to see what they'd created. Alessandra had burst into tears. Happy tears. Because her father was playing with her. It was the breakthrough we'd needed. And Nikolai had looked at me over his children's heads with gratitude that felt like more than gratitude. But we didn't talk about it. We kept our secrets. We maintained our boundaries. Until we didn't. It was week 4 when everything started fracturing. The call came during breakfast. Nikolai's phone rang, and his face went pale in a way I'd never seen. When he asked, his voice tight. "How bad?" He listened, and I watched his jaw clench, his knuckles go white around the phone. "I'll handle it," he said finally. "Keep them contained until I get there." He hung up and looked at me. "I have to leave."
Today.
"It might be a few days." What happened? A situation. In the North Territory. It requires my immediate attention. Translation: someone had done something that required his particular kind of response. The children, he said, and I heard the conflict in his voice. I've never left them for more than a day. Not since Maria died. They'll be fine. We'll be fine. Maya, if anything happens while I'm gone, James will be here. The security team will be here. Nothing will happen. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true, because in his world, anything could happen at any time. He left that afternoon, and I watched from the window as he climbed into a black SUV surrounded by men with guns barely concealed under their jackets. The children took it better than I expected, probably because they were used to their father's unpredictable schedule. But Mateo had nightmares that night. Bad ones. He woke up screaming about his mother being gone, and now his father being gone, and everyone always leaving. I held him until he calmed down, and I made promises I wasn't sure I could keep. That his father would come back. That I wasn't leaving. That he was safe and loved and nothing bad would happen. The next morning, a woman showed up at the door. She was beautiful in that aggressive way some women are. Perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect makeup. She carried herself like she owned the world, or at least expected the world to accommodate her. James intercepted her before she could enter. "Miss Valentina, you don't have clearance to be here." "I'm here to see Nikolai," she said, her accent thick Italian. "Mr. Nikolai is not available." "Then I'll wait." "That won't be possible." She smiled, cold and sharp. "Tell him Valentina is here. He'll want to see me." James didn't move. "I don't take orders from you, Miss Valentina." And Mr. Nikolai left explicit instructions about visitors while he's away. Her eyes shifted past James, landing on me standing in the hallway with the children behind me. "And who are you?" she asked. "The nanny," I said. "Another one?" She laughed. "How long will this one last, I wonder? Is there something I can help you with?" I kept my voice level, professional.
No.
"But you can give Nikolai a message. Tell him Valentina came by. Tell him we need to talk about our arrangement." "What arrangement?" The words were out before I could stop them. Her smile widened. "Ask him. When he gets back. If he comes back." James stepped forward. "You need to leave.
Now."
She looked at me one more time, assessing, calculating. Then she left, and James closed the door with more force than necessary. "Who was that?" I asked. "Someone from his past. Someone who doesn't matter anymore." She seemed to think she mattered. A lot of people think a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. But I saw the concern in James's face. Whatever that woman represented, it wasn't nothing. That night, Nikolai called. Not to check on the children, though he asked about them.
But to talk to me.
"James told me Valentina came by," he said.
Yeah.
"Who is she?" Silence on the other end. Long enough that I knew the answer would be complicated. "Someone I was supposed to marry," he finally said. "Before Maria." "She seems to think there's still an arrangement." "There isn't. That was ended years ago. She's just trying to cause problems." "Why now?" "Because she heard about you." My heart stopped. "What about me?" "That there's someone new in the house. Someone with the children. Someone I trust." "Nikolai, I'm just the nanny. You're not just anything, Maya. And people in my world notice when things change. When I change." "Have you changed?" "Yes." His voice was quiet. "Because of you." I should have shut this down. Should have reminded him about boundaries and professionalism and the fact that I was his employee, and this was inappropriate. But I didn't. "When are you coming back?" I asked instead. 2 more days. Maybe 3. This situation is more complicated than I expected. Is it dangerous? My entire life is dangerous. But I'm being careful. For them. For you.
For me.
He'd said for me. "Maya," he said, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Vulnerability.
Fear.
If something happens to me, there's an envelope in my office. Top right drawer of my desk. It has instructions, accounts, everything you'd need to take care of the children. Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, stop. You're coming back. You promised Mateo you'd help him build a race car track this weekend. You don't break promises to your son. I broke every promise to Maria. Then don't repeat that mistake. Come home. Home, he repeated, like he was testing the word. I haven't called anywhere home in a long time. Well, 3 children and a stubborn nanny are waiting for you here. So figure your situation out and come back. He laughed softly. You're bossy when you're worried. I'm not worried. You're a terrible liar. So are you. You said you're being careful, but I can hear it in your voice. Whatever's happening up there, it's bad. It's manageable. Nikolai. I can't tell you details, Maya. For your safety and theirs. I'm not asking for details. I'm asking you to promise me you'll do whatever it takes to come back alive. I promise. But promises in his world weren't the same as promises in mine. I knew that. He knew that. We both pretended otherwise. The next day, Valentina came back. This time, she didn't bother with James. She showed up when he was doing the perimeter check, and she rang the doorbell like a normal visitor. I answered because the children were in the kitchen, and I didn't want them involved in whatever this was. You again, I said. Can we talk? She didn't wait for an answer, just pushed past me into the house. Privately? I don't think that's a good idea. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Against my better judgment, I led her to Nikolai's office and closed the door. You seem smart, she said, walking around the room like she owned it. So I'll be direct. You need to leave. Excuse me? This house. These children. Nikolai. You need to leave before you get hurt. Is that a threat? It's advice. From someone who knows this world better than you ever will. I'm not going anywhere. She turned to face me fully. You think you're special? You think you're the first woman to walk into his life and think you can save him? I've known Nikolai for 15 years. I was supposed to be his wife before Maria stole him from me. And after she died, I waited. I was patient, because I knew eventually he'd need someone who understood his world. Someone who could stand beside him in the darkness. And yet he never called you. Her face hardened. Because he's been too busy grieving. Too busy drowning in guilt. But he's coming out of it now. I can see it. Everyone can see it. And when he's ready, he'll remember who actually belongs in his life. You mean who belongs in his business? They're the same thing. His life is his business. His business is his life. You can't separate them. And you, sweetheart, you're not built for that kind of integration. You don't know anything about what I'm built for. I know you're a broke single mother who took this job because you had no other options. I know you're playing house with his children because it's easier than admitting you're out of your depth. And I know that the second things get really dangerous, you'll run. Just like all the others. Is there a point to this? The point is that Nikolai needs someone strong. Someone connected. Someone who can help him expand his power instead of making him weak with sentiment. And you're making him weak, Maya. You're making him think about things like being a better father and spending time with his children and pulling back from important operations. That's dangerous. For him and for everyone who depends on him. Maybe he wants to be weak. Maybe he's tired of being strong all the time. Men like Nikolai don't get to be tired. They don't get to choose softness.
They rule or they die.
There's no middle ground. Then maybe it's time for a new kind of rule. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You really are naive. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Nikolai is going to come back from the north. He's going to be harder, colder, more focused on business than he's been in months. Because that's what crisis does. It reminds men like him who they really are. And when he looks at you after that, he won't see a partner. He'll see a weakness he can't afford. Are you done? Almost. One more thing. The children. You think you're helping them? You're setting them up for devastation. Because when you leave, and you will leave, they'll have lost another person they trusted. Another person who made them feel safe, and then abandon them. Is that really the legacy you want? That one hit. Because she was right. If I left now, after everything, I'd destroy whatever progress we'd made. I'm not leaving, I said firmly. Then you're a fool. And fools don't last long in this world. She left after that, and I stood in Nikolai's office feeling the weight of every word she'd said. Was I being naive? Was I putting the children at risk by staying? Was I making Nikolai weak when he needed to be strong? I didn't have answers. That night, I found the envelope he'd mentioned. Top right drawer of his desk, just like he'd said. Inside were legal documents. Guardianship papers for the children, listing me as their legal guardian in the event of his death. Bank account numbers with balances that made my hands shake. Instructions for the house, the security, everything. And a letter. Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I need you to know that the choice to make you guardian wasn't impulsive or desperate. It was the easiest decision I've ever made. Because in the short time you've been here, you've given my children something I couldn't.
Hope.
Safety. Love without conditions. You've taught them how to trust again. You've taught me how to be a father. And if my time runs out before I can tell you in person, I need you to know that meeting you was the best thing to happen to this family in 2 years. Take care of them. Love them. Give them the life Maria wanted for them. The life I should have been able to give them myself. And Maya, I'm sorry. For bringing you into this world. For making you care about people in danger. For falling in love with you when I had no right to feel anything at all. The letter was dated a week ago.
He'd fallen in love with me.
And he'd known it was wrong and dangerous and impossible. Just like I had. I sat in his office with that letter in my hands and cried. For him. For his children. For the impossible situation we'd all walked into. And then I put the letter back in the envelope, put the envelope back in the drawer, and made a decision. If Valentina was right, and Nikolai came back harder and colder and distant, I'd deal with it. If she was right, and loving him made him weak, I'd find a way to make him strong. And if she was right, and I was a fool for staying, then I'd be the biggest fool this world had ever seen.
Because those children needed me.
And I was done running from things that scared me. Even if the scariest thing was how much I'd started to need them too. Nikolai came back on day 6. I heard the cars pull up, heard voices in the entrance, heard James greeting him. I stayed in the playroom with the children, giving him space to settle back in. But when he appeared in the doorway an hour later, I knew immediately that Valentina had been right about one thing. Something had changed. His face was harder. His eyes were colder. The warmth that had been growing between us over the past weeks was gone, replaced by distance and professional courtesy. Maya, he said, can we talk? And I knew, just from the way he said my name, that everything was about to get much worse. His office felt different this time. Colder. Like the warmth we'd built over 4 weeks had been surgically removed. Nikolai stood behind his desk, not sitting. Creating distance. I need to make some changes, he said. My stomach dropped. What kind of changes? The situation in the north made me realize I've been distracted. Unfocused. People are starting to notice weaknesses in my organization. Gaps in my attention. Your children aren't a distraction. I didn't say they were. But his tone was flat. Professional. I'm talking about other things. Personal complications that are affecting my judgment. You mean me? He didn't deny it. Valentina visited while I was gone. She told me. She also told me I was making you weak. She's not wrong. The words hit like a physical blow. Nikolai, I've been spending too much time here. Too much energy on things that don't matter in the bigger picture. My enemies noticed. They made moves while I was playing house. Playing house? Is that what you think this is? I think I hired you to take care of my children, not to make me forget who I am. And who are you? The man who loves his kids, or the one who's too scared to let anyone close.
His jaw tightened.
I'm the man who runs an empire, who has responsibilities beyond bedtime stories and breakfast, who can't afford to be soft when people are depending on me to be strong. She got in your head. She told me the truth. The North situation happened because I wasn't paying attention. Because I was here, talking to you until midnight instead of managing my territory. 3 of my men were hurt because I was distracted. That's not your fault. It's exactly my fault. And it can't happen again. I stood up, anger replacing hurt. So, what, you're just going to shut down? Go back to being the cold, absent father your children barely know.
I'm going to do my job.
Which means establishing better boundaries. Boundaries.
Right.
Is that what we're calling it? Maya, this was always going to be temporary. You knew that. What's temporary? Me being here? Or you pretending you're capable of human emotion? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You're the one making it hard. You're the one who wrote me that letter. His face went pale. You read that. You told me where it was. You told me to open it if something happened to you. Nothing happened to me. Something happened. You just won't admit what. He turned away, looking out the window. I realized something up north. I can't be both men. I can't be the father who builds forts and the boss who makes hard choices. I have to choose. That's garbage and you know it. It's survival. It's fear. He spun around.
Yes.
It's fear. I'm afraid that if I let myself feel too much, if I let you matter too much, I'll make mistakes that get people killed. I'll fail everyone who depends on me. I'll become the man Maria begged me not to be, the one who chose wrong when it mattered most. So you're choosing wrong again, just in a different direction. I'm choosing safety. For my children.
For you.
Don't use me as an excuse. This isn't about keeping me safe. This is about you being terrified that you already care too much. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we weren't saying. I need you to maintain professional distance, he finally said. No more evening conversations. No more personal discussions. You take care of the children during your scheduled hours. I'll handle everything else. And the guardianship papers? Stay in place. If something happens to me, you're still their best option. But that's contingency planning, not a relationship. What about what you wrote in the letter? About falling in love with me? I was emotional, preparing for the worst. It didn't mean anything. You're lying. It doesn't matter if I am. This is how it has to be. I wanted to argue more. Wanted to make him see that he was destroying something good because he was scared. But I could see it in his eyes. He'd already decided. Already built the walls back up.
Fine, I said.
Professional distance. I can do that. Good. But Nikolai? When you realize you made a mistake, when you figure out that shutting everyone out doesn't actually make you stronger, don't expect me to be waiting. I won't. I left his office and somehow made it to my room before I started crying. Sophie found me 20 minutes later. She climbed into my lap without asking, just held me.
He's scared, she said.
I know, baby. Are we leaving? I thought about the triplets, about Matteo's nightmares getting better, about Alessandra finally smiling, about Luca learning to trust. No, I said. We're staying, but things are going to be different now. Different was an understatement. Nikolai became a ghost in his own house. He left early, came home late. When he was there, he was polite but distant. He'd check on the children, but from doorways, never entering, never sitting with them, never playing. The triplets noticed immediately. Papa's mad at us, Matteo said on day 3 of the new arrangement. He's not mad at you, sweetie. Then why won't he play with us anymore? I didn't have a good answer for that. Alessandra handled it differently. She got quiet, withdrawn. Started building walls again, the ones we'd spent weeks breaking down. Luca got angry. Started throwing things again. testing whether I'd leave now that their father had emotionally abandoned them again. And I held it together. I stayed consistent. I loved them through it. But at night, alone in my room, I fell apart. Because I'd been stupid enough to hope. Stupid enough to believe that broken people could heal together. Stupid enough to fall in love with a man who'd explicitly told me he couldn't be saved. Week 5 became week 6. The distance between Nikolai and everyone else grew wider. Then Valentina came back. She showed up for dinner one evening, walking in like she owned the place. Nikolai had invited her. Actually invited her. "Children," he said, his voice formal. "This is Miss Valentina. She'll be joining us for dinner." The triplets stared at her with obvious distrust. "Hi, babies," Valentina said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Your papa has told me so much about you." "Who are you?" Alessandra asked, hostile. "A friend of your father's. A very old friend." I watched from the kitchen doorway, my heart breaking as I understood what was happening. He was replacing me, not as a nanny, but as the woman in this house. He was bringing in someone from his world, someone appropriate, someone who wouldn't make him feel weak. Dinner was torture. Valentina talked about business, about connections she could provide, about opportunities for expansion. She touched Nikolai's arm when she spoke, called him Nick, acted like they had history and intimacy and a future. The children ate in silence, looking between their father and this stranger with confusion and hurt. After dinner, Nikolai asked me to stay. "Valentina will be around more often," he said once we were alone. "She's going to help with some business matters. I wanted you to know so you can adjust schedules accordingly." Adjust schedules?
Right.
She's also expressed interest in getting to know the children better. They have a nanny. They don't need her. They need stability. And Valentina understands my world in ways that I don't. You can say it. It's not personal, Maya. Everything about this is personal. You're punishing yourself by pushing away everyone who cares about you. And you're using her to make sure I get the message. I'm doing what's necessary. You're doing what's easy. There's a difference. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for just a second I saw the man from our midnight conversations. The one who'd been learning to be soft. The one who'd written that letter. Then it was gone. "This is my decision," he said. "You can accept it or leave."
I'm staying. For them.
Not for you.
Fine.
But Nikolai? When this blows up in your face, when you realize that you can't actually love someone just because they're convenient for your business, don't come to me looking for forgiveness. I won't need forgiveness. I'm making the right choice. Keep telling yourself that. I walked away before he could see me cry again. That night, I heard Matteo screaming from a nightmare. I ran to his room, but Nikolai was already there, holding his son, looking devastated. "Papa left," Matteo sobbed. "Papa left us like Mama did." "I'm right here," Nikolai said, his voice breaking.
No.
"You're gone. You're here, but you're gone." I watched from the doorway as Nikolai finally understood what his distance was doing. How his choice to be strong was actually destroying his children. He looked up and saw me, and in his eyes, I saw regret.
Pain.
The realization that he'd made a terrible mistake. But he didn't say anything, just held his son until the crying stopped. And I knew, standing there watching him break, that we'd reached the point of no return. Either he'd figure out how to be both men, the father and the boss, or he'd lose everything that mattered while trying to protect it. The question was whether he'd figure it out before it was too late. Everything fell apart in the span of 72 hours. It started with Alessandra.
She stopped eating.
Just completely stopped. She'd sit at the table, stare at her plate, and refuse to take a single bite. "I'm not hungry," she'd say, her voice flat. "Alessandra, you haven't eaten in 2 days." I said, "I'm not hungry." Luca started breaking things again. Not in anger this time, but methodically. He'd pick up toys and snap them in half. Rip pages from books. smash crayons into dust. When I asked him why, he just shrugged. Everything breaks eventually. I'm just helping it along. Mateo stopped sleeping entirely. I'd find him at 3 in the morning sitting in the hallway outside Nikolai's room, waiting for a father who never came out. I tried everything. Gentle conversations. Firm boundaries. Distractions. Nothing worked. They were deteriorating right in front of me, and I was powerless to stop it. Nikolai noticed but kept his distance. He'd ask me for updates, I'd tell him his children were falling apart, and he'd nod like I was reporting the weather. They'll adjust, he'd say. They're not adjusting. They're breaking. Children are resilient. They're 6 years old, and they've lost everyone they've ever loved. There's a limit to resilience. But he wouldn't listen.
Couldn't listen.
Because listening meant admitting he'd made the wrong choice. Valentina was there constantly now. She'd show up for breakfast, stay for dinner, act like she belonged. The children hated her. They wouldn't speak to her, wouldn't look at her, made their disgust obvious. She'd smile through it like their hatred was charming. They'll warm up to me, she'd tell Nikolai. They wouldn't. They never would. Because children know when someone is fake, and Valentina was performing every second she was in that house. Then Sophie got sick. Her asthma flared badly, worse than it had in months. I found her gasping in the middle of the night, her inhaler not helping, her lips starting to turn blue. James drove us to the emergency room at 2 in the morning. They admitted her, put her on oxygen, told me she'd be fine but needed to stay overnight for observation. I called Nikolai from the hospital. He didn't answer. I called 3 more times. Nothing. I texted, Sophie's in the hospital. She's stable, but I need to stay with her. Can you watch the triplets? He responded an hour later. I'm in a meeting. Valentina can stay with them. I stared at that text for a full minute. My daughter was in the hospital, and he couldn't be bothered to leave a meeting. He wanted to leave his traumatized children with a woman they hated. No, I texted back. James can stay with them. Or you can come home and be their father.
He didn't respond.
I spent the night in a hospital chair watching Sophie breathe through an oxygen mask, feeling like I'd made the biggest mistake of my life by staying in that house. When we got home the next afternoon, the house was chaos. Alessandra had locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. Luca had destroyed the playroom completely, every toy smashed, every book torn. Mateo was sitting in the kitchen crying silently, tears just streaming down his face. Valentina was on the phone, ignoring all of it. James looked exhausted.
I'm sorry, Maya.
I tried. Where's Nikolai? Still at his meeting. He said he'd be home tonight. I walked over to Valentina. Get out. She looked up annoyed. Excuse me? Get out of this house.
Now.
I don't take orders from the help. I'm not asking.
I'm telling.
Leave before I have James remove you. She stood up, furious. Nikolai invited me here. I don't care. These children need actual help, not whatever performance you're putting on. So leave. She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my face must have convinced her I was serious. Nikolai will hear about this, she said.
Good.
Tell him I quit. Her eyes widened. What? You heard me. I quit. I'm done watching him destroy his children because he's too scared to feel anything. I'm done being professional and distant while kids I love fall apart. I'm done pretending any of this is okay. You can't quit. Those children need you. They need their father. But he's too busy playing Mafia boss to notice they're dying inside. I turned to James. Can you stay until Nikolai gets home? Of course. Thank you. For everything. I went upstairs and started packing. Sophie watched from the bed, still weak from last night. We're leaving, she asked quietly. Yeah, baby. We're leaving. But the triplets. I can't help them if their father won't let me. I can't fix this alone. I was halfway through packing when Mateo appeared in the doorway. You're leaving, he said. Not a question. A statement. Like he'd been expecting it. My heart shattered. Mateo. Everyone leaves. Mama left. Papa left. Now you. Mateo, I tried. I really tried. Not hard enough. His voice was flat. Empty. Nobody ever tries hard enough. He walked away, and I heard his door slam. Alessandra came next. She stood in my doorway, thin and pale, her eyes hollow. I hate you, she said. I know. I trusted you. I let myself believe you were different. I am different. But I can't do this without your father's help. Then you're weak. Like everyone else. She left too. Luca didn't come. But I found a note shoved under my door an hour later. You promised you'd stay. You lied. 3 children. 3 different ways of saying the same thing. I'd betrayed them. By the time Nikolai came home, I had everything packed. He found me in my room, loading the last bag. What are you doing? He asked. Leaving. Like you wanted. I never said I wanted you to leave. You didn't have to say it. You made it clear I don't belong here. Maya, you can't just quit. Watch me. I stayed because I thought I could help your children. But I can't help them while you're actively destroying everything we built. I can't watch them fall apart because you're too scared to love them properly. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Your children haven't eaten, haven't slept, are literally breaking themselves into pieces. And you're at meetings. You're with Valentina. You're anywhere but here. I'm doing what I have to do.
No.
You're doing what's easy, what's safe, what doesn't require you to feel anything. You don't understand my world. I understand that your children needed their father, and he chose business over them. Again, just like with their mother. His face went white.
Don't.
Why not? It's true. Maria begged you to choose them. You didn't. Now they're begging you the only way they know how, by falling apart, and you're still choosing everything else. I'm trying to protect them. You're trying to protect yourself. There's a difference. He stared at me, and I saw the moment he understood I was actually leaving. That this wasn't a threat or manipulation. I was done. If you leave, they'll never forgive you, he said quietly. They'll never forgive you either. But at least I tried. At least I loved them without conditions, without fear, without holding back because I was scared of being weak. Maya, please. Please what? Please stay while you parade Valentina around? Please pretend I don't see you destroying your children? Please keep breaking my heart while you choose everyone and everything except what actually matters. I don't know how to do this. Yes, you do. You knew for 4 weeks. You were learning. You were getting better. Then you got scared and ran. Men in my position don't get to be scared. Everyone gets to be scared. Being scared is human. It's what you do, with the fear that matters. Sophie came to the door, her backpack on. Mama, I'm ready. Nikolai looked at her, then at me. Where will you go? A shelter until I find work. Same place I would have gone 2 months ago. I'll give you money. Enough to get an apartment, get settled. I don't want your money. I want you to be the father your children deserve. But you can't buy that. I picked up my bags and walked past him. The triplets were in the hallway. All 3 of them. Watching me leave. I wanted to say something. To explain. To make it better. But there was nothing I could say that would fix this.
I'm sorry, he whispered.
None of them responded. James drove us to a women's shelter across town. He tried to give me money. I refused. Take care of them, I told him. I'll try. But Maya, they need you. They need their father more. The shelter was exactly what I expected. Clean but crowded. Safe but temporary. Better than the street. Worse than anything else. Sophie curled up next to me that night in our shared room, and I held her while we both cried. I'd failed. Failed those children. Failed Nikolai. Failed myself. I'd let myself hope, let myself love, Let myself believe that broken things could be fixed if you just tried hard enough. But some things stay broken. And some people choose to stay in the dark rather than step into the light. I'd walked away from a man I loved and children who needed me because I couldn't save people who didn't want to be saved. It was the right choice. It felt like dying. I lasted 3 days at the shelter before James found me. He walked in looking uncomfortable, out of place in his expensive suit surrounded by women who'd lost everything. "You need to come back," he said.
No.
"Maya, please. Just listen. I don't work for Nikolai anymore. There's nothing to discuss. Alessandra tried to run away last night. My blood went cold." "What?" "She packed a bag and tried to leave through the garden. Said she was going to find her mother. We found her at the gate crying." I closed my eyes. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yes. Everything else, no. None of them are okay." Luca hasn't spoken in 3 days. Matteo screams every time Nikolai tries to touch him. It's worse than it's ever been. Then Nikolai needs to fix it.
He can't.
Not alone. Maya, I've worked for him for 8 years. I've never seen him like this. He's falling apart.
Good.
Maybe he'll finally understand what he's done. He does understand. That's the problem. He knows he destroyed everything, and he doesn't know how to fix it. That's not my problem anymore. James sat down next to me. "Do you love those children?" "That's not fair." "Do you?" "Of course I do." "Then come back." "Not for him. For them." "I can't. Not while he's choosing everything else over being their father." "He's not anymore. He ended things with Valentina. Told her to never come back. He's canceled every meeting for the next month. He's trying, Maya. But the children won't let him near them. They've shut down completely. They're grieving. Again. Because of him. Because of both of you. You left too." That hit hard because it was true. I'd been so focused on Nikolai's mistakes that I'd made my own. "What do you want from me, James?" "Come back.
Talk to him.
See if there's any way to fix this. Those kids don't deserve to lose everyone." Sophie had been listening from across the room. She came over now and took my hand. "We should go back, Mama," she said quietly. "Sophie, I miss them too. And they need us." She was right. I hated that she was right. One conversation, I told James. That's all I'm promising. The house felt different when we returned. Quieter. Emptier. Like the life had been drained out of it. Nikolai was in his office. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Exhausted. His shirt wrinkled. I'd never seen him anything less than perfectly put together. "Maya."
He stood up when he saw me.
"You came back." James said Alessandra tried to run away.
She did.
She was looking for Maria. She said everyone alive just leaves anyway, so she wanted to find someone dead who had to stay. The logic of a grieving 6-year-old. Heartbreaking and perfect. Where are they now? Their rooms. They won't come out.
Won't talk to me.
Won't eat unless James forces them. You did this. I know. You chose fear over love. Business over family. You became exactly what Maria didn't want. I know that too. He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Complete surrender. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "I've tried apologizing. Tried explaining. They won't listen. And they shouldn't. I don't deserve their forgiveness." "No, you don't. But they deserve better than what I'm giving them. They deserve a father who shows up, who stays, who loves them more than he fears losing them. So be that father." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You did it for 4 weeks. You were learning." And then I stopped. I got scared and I stopped. "So start again." He shook his head. "They won't let me near them. Every time I try, they shut down more. I'm making it worse. Because you're trying to fix it with words. Children don't need words. They need presence. Consistency. Time. I don't have time. Every day they pull further away. Then you make time. You cancel everything. You sit outside their doors. You show up for every meal. You be there even when they reject you. That's what love looks like. That's what you did. For them. For me.
Yeah.
And then you threw it away. I was wrong. I know. Maya, I'm asking for another chance. Not for me.
For them.
Come back. Help me be the father they need. I can't do it for you, Nikolai. You have to choose it yourself. I'm choosing it.
Right now.
I'm choosing them. I'm choosing to be present and scared and vulnerable and all the things I've spent 20 years avoiding. I'm choosing to be the man Maria wanted me to be. What about Valentina?
Gone. Permanently.
I told her I was done with the business-first mentality, that I was restructuring everything to put my children at the center. And your organization? Will adjust, or I'll find people who can handle things without me being available 24 hours a day. My children matter more than power, more than reputation, more than anything. I wanted to believe him, wanted to think he'd actually changed. If I come back, I said slowly, things are different. You don't get to push me away when things get hard. You don't get to choose business over them. You show up or I leave permanently. I'll show up. And you deal with your grief. Actually deal with it. Get therapy. Talk about Maria. Put her pictures back up. Stop pretending you can outrun pain. Okay. And Nikolai? If you hurt those children again, if you make them feel abandoned one more time, I will take them away from you myself. Legal guardian papers or not. Understood? Understood. I looked at him for a long moment, trying to decide if I believed him, if this was real or just another promise he'd break. Please, Maya, he said quietly. Give me one more chance to get this right. Sophie squeezed my hand, making her opinion clear. One chance, I said finally. That's all you get. That's all I need.
He was wrong about that.
It would take more than one chance. It would take weeks, maybe months of proving himself. But it was a start. Let's go talk to your children, I said. They won't listen. Then we'll sit outside their doors until they do. That's what love is. Showing up even when you're not wanted. Staying even when you're rejected. Being there until the walls come down. You learned that from experience.
Yeah.
From 9 years of loving a daughter alone. From 4 weeks of loving your children. From a lifetime of people leaving and learning to stay anyway. We walked upstairs together. 3 closed doors. 3 broken children behind them. This is going to take time, I warned him. I have time. I'll make time. It's going to hurt. I can handle hurt. Can you handle forgiveness? Because that's harder than punishment.
He looked at me.
Will you forgive me? Ask me again when you've earned it. Fair enough. We sat down in the hallway outside Alessandra's door. Nikolai on one side, me on the other. Alessandra, he called out. I'm here. Maya's here. We're not leaving. We're going to sit right here until you're ready to talk. Even if it takes all night. Even if it takes a week. We're staying. Silence from inside. Your papa means it, I added. He's canceled everything.
No meetings.
No business. Just you 3. For as long as it takes. More silence. But after 10 minutes, I heard movement. Small footsteps coming closer to the door. Promise. Alessandra's voice, small and broken. Nikolai's voice cracked. I promise, baby.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You left us. I did. And that was wrong. But I'm here now. And I'm not leaving again. The door opened a crack. Alessandra's face appeared, tear-stained and suspicious. You said that before. I know. And I broke that promise. So I'm going to have to prove this one. Every single day. Until you believe me again. She looked at me. You left too. I did. And I'm sorry. I should have stayed and fought harder. Are you staying now? If you want me to. Do you want to? More than anything, the door opened wider. Alessandra stood there, small and wounded and desperately wanting to believe. Nikolai held out his arms. "Can I hold you?" She hesitated, then launched herself at him, crying so hard she could barely breathe. He held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you, and I'm never letting go again." 2 more doors opened. Luca and Matteo, watching cautiously. I held out my arms to them. They crashed into me, all of us crying, all of us broken, all of us choosing to try again. It wasn't forgiveness yet.
Not really.
But it was the beginning of something that might become forgiveness eventually. And sometimes, beginnings are enough. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were good. Nikolai would sit with the children for hours, building forts, reading stories, just being present. They'd smile. They'd laugh. They'd almost forget to be guarded. Other days were hard. They'd test him constantly. Luca would break something just to see if his father would leave. Alessandra would refuse to speak to him for hours. Matteo would have nightmares and push Nikolai away when he tried to help. But he stayed. Every single time he stayed. 3 weeks after I came back, things finally started to shift. It was a Saturday morning. Nikolai made breakfast, terrible pancakes that were burnt on the outside and raw in the middle. The triplets thought it was hilarious. "Papa, these are disgusting," Alessandra said, but she was giggling. "I know. I'm terrible at this. Maya, help me." "Nope. You said you'd do breakfast today. You're doing breakfast." We ended up ordering from a diner. The children thought watching their powerful father fail at pancakes was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. It was normal. Beautifully, perfectly normal. That afternoon, Nikolai did something I'd been asking him to do for weeks. He brought out the photos of Maria. The children froze when they saw them. "I should have done this 2 years ago," Nikolai said quietly. "I was scared that seeing her would hurt too much. But hiding her hurt more. She was your mother. She loved you, and you deserve to remember her face." He set up photos all over the house. Maria holding the triplets as babies. Maria laughing at a birthday party. Maria and Nikolai on their wedding day. Matteo stood in front of one photo for a long time. "I remember her smile," he whispered. "She smiled a lot when she was with you 3, Nikolai said. "You made her so happy. Even when we were bad?" "Especially then." She said you 3 had her spirit. Strong and stubborn and full of life. Alessandra touched a photo gently. "She was pretty. She was beautiful. Like you." "Do I look like her?" "So much. Your eyes, your smile, your determination. All Maria." They spent the rest of the day looking at photos, asking questions, learning about the mother they were forgetting. Nikolai answered everything honestly. The good memories, the hard ones, the way she died, the regrets he carried. It was painful, but it was healing. That night, after the children were asleep, Nikolai found me in the kitchen. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For pushing me to do that. I've been avoiding her memory for so long. But they needed to remember her. I needed to remember her. She loved you, you know. Even when she was disappointed." "How do you know?" "Because that's what love is. Being disappointed and staying anyway." He stepped closer. "Like you did."
Yeah.
"Like I did." "Maya, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "That letter I wrote. The one where I said I was falling in love with you. I lied about one thing." My heart stopped. "What?" "I said I was falling. Past tense. Like it was something that might still change. But it wasn't. I'd already fallen."
Completely.
"And pushing you away didn't change that. It just made me miserable." "Nikolai, I'm not asking for anything. I know I hurt you. I know I have to earn your trust back. But I needed you to know. I love you. Not because you're good with my children, though you are. Not because you're patient with me, though you are. but because you're brave and honest and you see me, all of me, and you stay anyway. I should have been careful. Should have protected myself. But I was tired of being careful. I love you too, I said. Even though you're stubborn and scared and you make terrible decisions when you're afraid. I love you anyway. He smiled. We're quite a pair. The worst. Can I kiss you? You should probably ask if you can take me to dinner first. Maya Torres, can I take you to dinner? When? Tomorrow night. Somewhere nice. Somewhere you deserve. What about the kids? James can watch them. They'll be fine for a few hours. Okay. Yes. You can take me to dinner. And after dinner, can I kiss you? Let's see how dinner goes first. He laughed, and it was the best sound I'd heard in weeks. The next evening, he took me to a restaurant that probably required reservations months in advance. We talked for hours. About everything. His childhood in Italy. My years in foster care. His marriage to Maria. My relationship with Daniel. The ways we'd both been broken and were slowly healing. Do you think she'd approve? He asked over dessert. Maria. Of us. I think she'd want you to be happy. To give your children a full life. They love you. You know that, right? They love you like a mother. I'm not trying to replace her. You're not. You're just being yourself. And that's exactly what they need. He drove us home slowly, like he didn't want the night to end. At the door, he turned to me. Can I kiss you now? You really want permission for everything, don't you? I want to do this right. I want to treat you the way you deserve. Then yes, you can kiss me. He did. Soft and gentle and full of promise. When we pulled apart, I was crying. What's wrong? He asked, concerned. Nothing. Everything's right. For the first time in 9 years, everything feels right. For me too. We went inside to find all 3 triplets awake, sitting on the stairs with James, clearly spying. Did you kiss her? Alessandra asked immediately. Nikolai laughed. That's not your business. You did. I can tell. Are you going to marry Maya? Luca asked. Slow down. We just had our first date. But you love her, right?
Nikolai looked at me. Yeah.
I love her. And she loves you? I nodded.
I do.
Then you should get married, Matteo said matter-of-factly. That's what people do when they love each other. It's a little more complicated than that, buddy.
Why?
Because marriage is a big decision. It requires time and trust and making sure everyone's ready. We're ready, Alessandra said. We want Maya to be our mama. My heart stopped. Alessandra, not instead of our real mama, but like our now mama. Is that okay? I looked at Nikolai. He was crying. That's more than okay, I said. That's perfect. Sophie came down the stairs then, grinning. So, we're actually staying? For real this time? For real this time, I confirmed.
Good.
Because I already told my friends at school I had 3 new siblings. Everyone laughed. The children hugged us. James smiled from the corner. It was chaotic and messy and perfect. 2 months later, Nikolai proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or on some grand vacation, but in the kitchen, while I was making breakfast and the children were fighting over who got the last waffle. He just got down on one knee in the middle of the chaos and held out a ring. Maya Torres, will you marry me? Will you officially become part of this insane, broken, healing family? Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes. The children screamed. Sophie jumped up and down. James appeared with champagne that he'd apparently been keeping ready for this exact moment. We got married 3 months after that. Small ceremony in the garden. Just family and a few close friends. The triplets were in the wedding party. Sophie was my maid of honor. James walked me down the aisle since I had no family of my own. When Nikolai said his vows, he cried. I promise to choose you and our children every single day. To be present even when it's hard. To love you without fear. To be the man Maria wanted me to be, and the husband you deserve. When I said mine, I cried too. I promised to stay even when things get difficult. To see all of you, the dark and the light, and love you anyway. To be the mother your children need, and the partner you deserve. We kissed and the children cheered. At the reception, Alessandra gave a speech. She was 7 years old and completely fearless. Maya isn't our real mama, she said. Our real mama is in heaven. But Maya is our now mama. And she's perfect. She makes terrible jokes and burns dinner sometimes and lets us stay up late when we're sad. And she never leaves. Even when we're bad. Even when Papa was stupid. She stays. And that's what makes her family. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. That night, after everyone had gone home and the children were asleep, Nikolai and I stood in the garden looking at the stars.
We did it, he said.
We actually made it. Did you doubt we would? Every day, I kept waiting for something to go wrong. For you to realize you deserved better. For my past to destroy our future. Your past made you who you are. I wouldn't change it, even the bad parts. Especially the bad parts. They taught you how to fight for what matters. He pulled me close. I love you, Mrs. Petrov. I love you too, even though you still can't make pancakes. He laughed. Some things never change.
Good.
I like you exactly as you are. We stood there holding each other, two broken people who'd found healing in each other, in 4 children who needed parents who understood pain, in a love that was messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I'd shown up desperate and broke to take an impossible job. It was better. Because sometimes the most dangerous situations lead to the most beautiful transformations. And sometimes having nothing left to lose is exactly what you need to gain everything that matters. 5 years later, the house that once felt like a mausoleum was full of life.
Noise.
Laughter. The beautiful chaos of a family that had learned to heal together. The triplets were 11 now. Alessandra was top of her class, fierce and protective like her mother. Luca had channeled his energy into sports, playing soccer with the same intensity he once used to destroy things. Matteo was gentle and artistic, drawing pictures of our family that we hung everywhere. Sophie was 13, brilliant and kind, the big sister the triplets adored. And we had a new addition, a baby girl we named Maria, after the woman who'd loved these children first. The triplets had asked for it. Said they wanted their little sister to carry their mama's name forward. Nikolai had cried when they suggested it. He'd changed everything about his business over the years. Went legitimate mostly. Still had power, still had influence, but used it differently now. Protected people instead of controlling them. Built things instead of destroying them. He was home for dinner every night. Never missed a school event. Coached Luca's soccer team. Taught Alessandro Italian. Sat with Matteo while he drew. He'd become the father Maria wanted him to be. The husband I deserved. The man he'd always had the potential to become.
Me?
I went back to school. Got my degree in social work. Started a foundation helping single mothers get back on their feet. Used my experience to help others who were drowning the way I once was. Nikolai funded it completely. Said it was the best investment he'd ever made. We weren't perfect. We still fought sometimes. Still had hard days. Still struggled with old fears and new challenges. But we showed up for each other. Every single time. This morning, I found Nikolai in the kitchen making breakfast. The pancakes were still terrible. Some things never change, I said, kissing his cheek. And some things change completely, he replied, pulling me close. Thank you. For what? For walking into this house 5 years ago and refusing to give up on us. For seeing what we could be instead of what we were. For loving us when we were unlovable. You were always lovable. You just needed someone to see it. The children thundered downstairs, arguing about something ridiculous. Baby Maria started crying from the nursery. The smoke alarm went off because Nikolai had burnt something again. It was chaos. Beautiful, perfect chaos. "This is everything I never knew I needed," Nikolai said, holding me while our children destroyed the kitchen around us. Me too. Later that evening, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, I sat down to write. Because our story needed to be told. Not for fame or attention, but because somewhere out there, someone was drowning. Someone was broke and desperate and taking a job they weren't qualified for just to survive. Someone needed to know that sometimes the impossible situations lead to the most beautiful outcomes. That broken people can heal together. That love isn't about perfection. It's about staying. That sometimes having nothing left to lose gives you everything to gain. So if you're watching this and you're struggling, if you're at rock bottom wondering if things will ever get better, I want you to know something. They can. They will. But only if you're brave enough to stay when everything in you wants to run. Brave enough to love when loving feels dangerous. Brave enough to believe that you deserve more than survival. I was a broke single mother who walked into a mafia boss's house to take care of children nobody else could handle. Now I'm a wife, a mother to 5 incredible kids, and living proof that transformation is possible. Your story doesn't have to end where mine began. It can end where mine is now.
Happy.
Healed. Home. So don't give up. Don't run. Don't let fear win.
Stay. Fight. Love.
The best chapters of your life might be the ones you haven't written yet. Before you go, do me a favor. Hit that like button if the story touched you. Subscribe because I'll be sharing more stories like this, stories about people who found hope in impossible places. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, what resonated with you, what struggles you're facing. You're not alone. None of us are. We're all just broken people trying to find our way home. And sometimes home finds us first. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Now go write your own happy ending. You deserve it.